Can people hear me? Please say, okay, Jonathan can hear me. The rest of you, I don't know, because you turned your cameras off. So turn your cameras on. You can still stay on mute, but at least show your face. How would you feel like if I would present like this the entire time? So yeah. Okay. Ilan, can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear.
Right. Anna, can you hear me? All stations, this is control. Do you read? Over. You can simply do this. I just want to know that people hear me. Okay. All right. Love the thumbs up. Marcela, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Okay. Emmanuel and Jeka, before I throw you out of this Zoom webinar, please show your faces and tell me that you can hear me, or at least do the thumbs up. Okay, Jessica is trying to connect to audio. Emmanuel, you're absent. Emmanuel, do you read? Over.
I can hear you.
Okay. Are you staying as a ghost, visually speaking?
Just give me a second here.
Okay, no, I'm kidding. Take your time. Okay, let's wait just 1 more minute maybe for people to show up, but I want to respect your time. So if they show up and we started already, I'm not gonna cry. So okay. Hi, Emmanuel. What is it, snowy where you're from? You're on mute, Emmanuel.
No, I'm in Canada right now. It's a bit chilly today.
Come on, I mean, we're mid-May. How chilly can it be?
It snowed last week. Yeah.
Anybody wants to tell Emmanuel what's the current temperature in Israel today at noon hours?
36 degrees Celsius. I just checked, comparing with my European friends who are complaining about the weather.
36.
I don't know where you're from.
I would love that right now.
But basically, take your temperature, multiply that by -1, that's Israel. That's usually what I do with Canada. Take the temperature, multiply by -1, that's it.
I would love that right now.
Okay. All right. I see some more people joining in, but I do want to respect your time. So all stations, this is control. Thank you very much for being here with us. Operations is not here. Usually I call operations, the people from Masa who are here, and then their job is to make sure everything works, and people, they ask things on the post. But Rochelle was not able to be with us, and there's nobody else from the Masa team, so we have no operations on this radio transmission. Otherwise, speak up. So given that we don't have that, so it's just me and you, please don't ask on the chat. It's really difficult for me as I talk to people to go to the chat, and then I see a lot of stuff. So the way we used to do it is that someone from the Masa team will pick up the questions and read them out. We don't have that today. So what the only option left to do is for you to actually show your face on video and speak the hell up. So this is an improv session. Okay. So when Masa asked me as a follow-up to the Don't Miss Your Corona Crisis Opportunity webinar, which you of course watched from the beginning to end, all of you, twice. What could be a very effective follow-up that would be relevant to people? So the answer was, pretty straight up simple. It's going to be biblical analogies in Shakespearean literature and their effect on current Israeli society. But then we decided to go with improv. So let's see. Well, by the way, it's called improv, but just so you see that we're not bullshitting, I did prepare for this meetup. So the message of today is not don't prepare, just improvise whenever. No, I did prepare. I prepared talking points, but I did not prepare the entire script. There is no lecture. So, I'm showing you what I'm doing. So let's see, what did I prepare for today? Okay, context. So this webinar is in a way related to a former webinar called Don't Miss Your Corona Crisis Opportunity, which is basically me bringing my business unit thinking, putting it on the table. And then a lot of people ask questions about job interviews, about entrepreneurship, about their career path, about Aliyah to Israel, about how to reach out to people during these weird times. Where's the opportunity? A lot of interesting questions. So that was over there, and it's all online, so you can check it out. So today's basically, it's supposed to be some sort of a follow-up. I don't want to repeat things that we already discussed, but the way I'm going to approach this webinar is based on my philosophy, which is in today's world of work, we all have to think like business people. Jonathan and Anna and Julia and Jessica and Eden and Leah and Emmanuel and Marcela and Ilan, you are all the CEO of You Incorporated. That's what the internet is doing, even if you're an employee. So what does that mean? And where does improv comes in? So that's the context of today's session. I'm going to speak for like 10 minutes. And you know what, maybe I'll be fair, 15, 20 minutes, but then I want to open this up for questions, answers, and practice. If you feel comfortable practicing, it would be the best. But this is not a you know, like in theater when you practice improv and not like the comedy show. The idea is improv with the context of our career. So improv in job interviews, improv in meetings, in the office, and so on and so forth. Okay. The other point I wanted to make, this, let's do it like this. So there is a post called The Importance of Improv in Our Careers. Can everybody see my screen? You guys see my screen? Okay, great. So it's a post, it's on LinkedIn, it was posted on Times of Israel as well. And that's basically the context of today. So I don't need to read the post because obviously you all read it twice. But I'm just going to go over it quickly. I do need to give 2 shout outs. Number one, this post was co-written with the amazing Rita Ritvin, who is mentioned here. And she could not join in today, but a lot of what we discuss here is also from her professional experience. So I want to give her a shout out, Rita Ritvin. And we met at WeWork, so I want to give them a shout as well. Okay, we're not going to go over the entire post. You guys, I don't know if you even know, I mean, anybody here doesn't know Seinfeld? Okay. Who here remembers that episode when George is like, you know, in hindsight, figures out what he should have said? Nobody knows that. Okay, super funny clip, which is the context for what we want to talk about. Watch it later on. Dude, you should, you know, fill in for Seinfeld. You missed it because you were too young. Watch Seinfeld. So imagine this character that goes into an important meeting and, you know, his colleague is laughing at him. I'm going to shut down this for now. And his colleague is laughing at him. And then, you know, George, who is the hero here, you know, he's like, you know, choked, he's struck. He doesn't know what to say. And then 2 hours later, he's in his car and he's like, God damn it, I should have said this. And it eats him up until he, you know, makes U-turn, goes back because he has to say that thing. And it's done in a very funny way, so watch it. This is something that happens to all of us. We all say to ourselves every now and then, oh, God damn it, we should have said this in meeting. Or, you know, when they told us X, we should have said Y. And in a way, it's the context of why improv is important. So George Costanza, who here remembers, you know what, let's put it this way. Anybody here never encountered a situation where in hindsight you said, oh, I should have said this? Who here, you know, who here admits like this happened to you? Who here experienced that? Be honest. What, Julia, this never happened to you? Like in hindsight? A family argument or with friends or a job, I don't know, a business meeting. It happened to all of us, right? Great. So you get stuck or you're afraid to speak up and then you don't want to show up again because you don't want this to happen again for you. But then you also miss the opportunity to, build a relationship and move the conversation forward. It's true for small talk discussions, friends, job interviews, of course, work. We all know that. Now, in the past, I admit, in order to avoid such situations, I used to prepare a lot for meetings. Not like I prepared for this one with talking points, but like prepare a lot for meetings. I would literally like imagine in my head the screenplay of what I'm going to say, what people may respond to, and then it's like an options tree. Like if they say X, what do I say? If they say Y, what do I say? And I used to be like that with job interviews, with business meetings, etc. And then along the way, a good friend of mine and someone I learned a lot from by the name of Haggai Stern, he taught me not to do it because we're trying to program the situation in order to control it. And it's a mistake, especially because the minute we're thrown out of the screenplay, we don't know what to do. And a better way would be to learn how to adapt and see as it goes. And again, we'll get to situations in a practical way and not try to control the screenplay. So it's important to practice, but you need to practice on how to react to different circumstances, not practice for a specific circumstance.
When you say practice, like for example, for a job interview, do you like practice in a mirror or do you just wing it?
So we'll get to that. So here's one. How many people here have encountered the advice of, think in advance? You'll get asked, what are your pros and what are your cons? What are you good at and what are you not good at? Have a ready-made answer for that, right? Great. So you think about what you should say, and then you come to the job interview and they ask something completely different and you don't know how to reply. So mirror or not mirror, we'll get to that because that's more of how to do it. It's not what to do. The idea is prepare for situations and leave them open to respond to what's happening in the room. Don't try to program the situation. By the way, even if there is something you really want to say and it wasn't asked, there's a way to move the conversation to say what you want to say. So there's that. And Ilan, we'll get to the practice a little bit later. Other important points. So I used to do it. I stopped. Why is this important? Okay, so I'm trying to connect to your world. How many people here are currently Masa participants? Hands up. Okay, how many people here are alumni, former participants? Okay, Anna, Jessica, Nat, Leah, I would really appreciate if you're willing to show up your face so you could at least do that thingy. So if you try to go back to your Masa experience, or for those of you who are in it right now, I'm guessing you had some sort of an Israeli culture immersive practice, right? Like how to behave at the office, right? Or, here are the top 10 things you should know about Israeli work culture. Yes or no? Did you have something like this in the beginning of your program, in the middle of your program? Yeah? Yeah, I see some nodding faces. Okay. So you had that, which is important. I mean, it's how to fit in and how to be Israeli with Israelis. And we could study that and it will be effective. But then the next month, we're being sent to Romania, and now we need to work with Romania. So what? Every time we'll learn that to specific different cultures, or maybe there's a way to make it universal. So we learn how to adapt quickly and not how to adapt to a specific culture. Plus on Masa, you don't really have a lot of time. So learning how to adapt to situations is effective, not just adapting to a specific situation. That's why improv is important. Another point which was raised, it is something that is good to practice, but there's also a part which is pretty much like bicycle, meaning when you kind of get it, then you kind of get it, and then you basically practice without even noticing because you use it all the time. The analogy we use on the post is the chameleon. So a chameleon changes its colors with regards to the environment. It learns the color and then learns to adapt to that color. So you don't need to teach the chameleon every specific color. So that's basically that. And no, when you change your color, you do not change who you are. You need to be you. The chameleon stays a chameleon when it shifts from yellow to green, but it's from a yellow chameleon to a green chameleon. So that's the analogy. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about improv. The rest you can read it on the post. So unless someone wants to ask, I don't know, a hypothetical, theoretical question, I want to get to the more practical side, share a few tips, and move to practice. Any questions about generally improv, what it is, and why is that important? Okay, great, no questions. So in the post, let's just get rid of it so I can shut my screen down. Okay, you see my screen, right? Awesome. So in the post, we kind of talk about it, improv, yada, yada. I basically gave you some of the points right now. Is it really local? No, it's universal. What is improv in business and life? Well, it's a lot. If you take my approach of thinking like a business unit, then improv is a key sales tool. And since we are all business units, we need to learn how to sell ourselves to our boss, sell ourselves in the office. Not sell in a sleazy way, sell in a good way.
What would be the difference between improvisation and acting?
When you're acting, you're trying to, from a conscious place, put yourself into a character which is not you. When you're improvising, you're in a way still you. I mean, of course, in theater, you can improvise by getting to character. But what I'm talking about is learning how to adapt to different situations without freaking out and get a blackout. So you're still you, but you would not be the same you if you interview for a Japanese company or if you interview for an Israeli company, right? Yes, no? Who asked? Jonathan?
No, I asked. Can you repeat your last question?
Yeah, sure. I just don't see you because I'm sharing my screen. Who is it, Ilan?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically that is my answer. When you're acting someone. When you're improvising, you're still you.
Yeah, but I don't know, from my experience based on improvisation, like it hasn't really worked out very well.
Okay, which is why it's something that needs to be practiced, and the way I would improvise and the way you would improvise would be different because we're different human beings, but there are some tricks or some hacks that are pretty basic, and I want to get to them. But the idea is to improvise in real life situations, not improv sessions where you do get into character. Is that clear?
Okay.
I hope no one is confused, like you wanted to get some theatrical improv skills for your theatrical career. I mean, it's less that, it's more, for job interviews and business meetings and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Great. So yeah, the chameleon, key improv practice for your career. Okay. So again, this post was written with Rita Ritvin. Let's just give her the respect. So that's the person. She's not here in Israel anymore. She's back in Miami. So she helped me write this post. Thank you, Rita, back here. So let's start with one practice, which is very good from what I came to learn in team meetings. This could be in your next Masa leadership seminar. It could be in a team meeting in the office, in the internship, and so on and so forth. So a lot of times, someone would say something and some people may react in a way that is kind of like, well, no, because. And even if the answer is no, because, you want to frame it in a way that is, well, yes, and blah, 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 blah. I can tell you that from a leadership perspective, it's a very effective tool to create a positive atmosphere to help people collaborate with you more. So Rita talks about it here in the post, so I don't want to spend time on that. I actually want to move on to different things, but that is the post. Okay. Another key point I want to get to which I learned from the amazing Lior Shoham, who is a great storyteller and a consultant. So he taught me to say, this is good, but blah, 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 like when you give feedback. And one of the keys that promote a discussion that creates positivity, and I'll show how this is related to improv, is not to say, yeah, it was good, but blah, 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 to say, listen, it was great, but it could be greater if. So again, I'm starting with key points that do not change who you are, do not change what you say, it's in how you lay it over. So yes, and great to greater. Another key point before we move into practice, and I want to hear from you, like real life situations, job interviews in the internship and so on and so forth, and actually practice. One more key point, which I'll use in the practice, is what I call to go meta. Anybody here knows what metadata is? Okay, Jonathan, tell us, what is metadata?
That is data on data. So,
Meaning, what do you mean data on data?
it depends on what you would need to use it for. For example, I might want to know how censuses are taken. So rather than looking at a census, I look at multiple censuses to see more about them.
Correct. Or let me try to use a more general analogy. Tell me if I'm right. Let's say you have a database with 120 entries. So the fact that you have 180 entries is information on the database. So it's data on the data, right? It's used a lot online and so on and so forth. So go meta means provide data on the data. Let's say you're in a job interview and they ask you a question and you need some time to think. So a lot of the times I would say, it's an interesting question. Last time I was asked about this, I actually thought about X, Y, and Z, but I kind of want to tell you right now that it's A, B, and C. So you provide information about what's happening behind your scenes, behind your head, which buys you time and also creates trust and openness. So go meta means share with the person who asked you a question or who wants your opinion. What is your thought process like? I'm going to use that in the example. Anybody here may know the term break the fourth wall? Okay, Jonathan, someone else now. Who here heard the term break the fourth wall?
I did.
Julia.
Can see it in a lot of shows and comic books. It's when the character turns and talks to the audience.
Right. So I don't know if it's right or not. Someone told me like this goes back to ancient Greece, where one of the characters would go to the audience, like think about the climax of the show, the play, and the actor. It's the heat of the moment. It's a lot of tension, and the character would now look at the audience and say, "Dear audience, what do you think I should do as the main hero?" Something like that. Meaning, let's acknowledge the fact that this is a play. This is a theoretical play, and I'm the actor and you're the audience. That is something that is very effective on job interviews and team meetings. It's kind of related to go meta. It's to break the fourth wall. Meaning, share with the interviewer or your boss or the other person the context. I mean, look, right now we're in a context of a webinar, so and share that context, and it allows you to improvise. Another thing that I try to use, I don't impose it, but I use it a lot. In every specific conversation, meeting, job interview, or in my case, when I sit with a customer or potential customer, try to agree, disagree, and at least at one time say, I don't know. So you don't always agree, you don't always disagree, and you don't always don't know. But if you show, I don't know, I would say 50% agree, 30% disagree, at 20% I don't know, you allow yourself to build trust. So you don't want to impose that, but you do want to use that. And the last thing I would share before I literally open this to improv, especially for job interviews, interview the interviewer. How many people here got to interview the interviewer in job interviews? Okay, great. Anybody here has never got to interview the interviewer? Ari, Nat, Emmanuel, and some other folks that turned their screen down. I'm gonna, and Noel too, because the photo doesn't count. I want to throw you away. At least show your face. You don't have to be unmuted. But anybody here has never interviewed the interviewer? And I don't mean when the interviewer asked you, do you have any questions? And then you asked a few questions. I mean, when you took the lead on the meeting and asked questions and you were the moderator. Who here has never done it? Be honest. Okay. So for those who did it, what would you say is the difference between job interviews where you literally are the more passive side because they want to interview me, or where you took a more leading role in a good way and behaved like some sort of like the moderator in some parts, and you actually asked questions that they may not have anticipated? What did you learn from your reaction? I'm curious.
What do you mean by like leading the interview? Do you mean by controlling the entire aspect of the interview, or just asking questions to the interviewer?
Well, not the entire aspect, of course. You don't want to be the candidate that takes control of the entire interview meeting, but at least in some parts, you didn't wait for them to ask you if you have any questions. And you ask questions that they may have not anticipated.
Okay, I've done that before.
Okay, who else burst in? Marcela, was it you or Jessica?
I did, but
Okay.
I think it's positive. It shows interest and proactivity, so it's a good sign.
Anybody here had a negative experience in taking a little bit of the lead in job interviews? Would you mind sharing?
I interviewed with a university in San Francisco once, and the people who were interviewing me did not come prepared to the interview. They had 5 minutes worth of questions. And this is from a person who knows how to give a job interview. So I had to spend the rest of our slot interviewing them. And I also knew if they weren't coming prepared to an interview, that's not an office experience that I would want to work in. So I basically spent it so they wouldn't tell other colleagues, this guy can't interview, it was over in 5 minutes.
Okay, so they did not know how to improv. Okay, interesting. So you as a candidate, you felt it on the interviewer that they lacked that skill, and it left a negative impression on you, right? Like, I don't want to work in a place that doesn't know how to move beyond, 5 minutes interview, pre-made questions. Right? Did I understand correctly? Okay.
I think I also had a bad experience. I think there was one interview where I asked too much questions in a way that kind of revealed that I was unsure about the job position that I was being interviewed for. And that didn't really go well.
Okay, so don't ask too many questions. All right. Mikhail asked on the chat, structure. I don't see Mikhail here. Is there a Mikhail in the house? Mikhail Lubanov. If you're here, please explain what you mean by structure. That is a very vague, I mean, I can improv on it, but I don't know what you meant.
I think that was asked like 10 or 15 minutes ago.
All right.
I think
Yeah,
that was
I
asked
don't know.
like 10 minutes ago.
Guys, so here's a perfect example. You probably left. So, please don't use the chat because it's hard for me to keep track. I'm with you. I'm totally with you. So ask me. Okay, great. So
I have a question
yes.
regarding what you said before, because I understand like all the tips you gave, it's like very good like communication techniques, but
Hold on,
I don't.
please, Jessica, could you please just speak slower because I don't hear you so well, and maybe some of the others.
Okay, sorry.
Slower.
Okay, so regarding the things you explained before, so I understand them as very like useful communication techniques, but I don't see exactly how it will help me to be like better, like react better, and not to regret to say something that I would have like said if I like is this velocity in your mind to be able to reply as you want to reply and what you want to reply. So
Okay. Thank you for sharing. That is exactly why I wanted to really rush through everything to go straight into the practice. So what I would want to do right now, Jessica, is tell you, if you feel comfortable, give me like a specific scenario, like, I don't know, tell me which jobs you want to apply to, what happened, or what are you afraid that will happen, and let's improv on it to prepare. But before I do that,
yeah.
How many people here do not know the context of, think like a business unit? Hello, Michael Schwartz from Masa. Okay, maybe it's a ghost. Michael, if you're a ghost, at least it's me. I'm Michael, I'm a ghost. Okay, so
can I give you an example? Can I give you a situation? Because like, unfortunately,
yes.
I don't have too much time.
So hold on, is it okay with you, Jessica? I'm going to give Ilan to go first, and then I'm back with you. Only if it's okay with her.
Yeah, perfect.
I know, for me, I think the most common situation I have in interviews, which is why I keep failing, is that I have like skills A, B, but I don't have skills C, or I have skills A, but don't have B and C.
Okay.
But like, I try to show that I'm capable of learning the other skills, but Israel, they have no patience and they want someone that has already the experience. So how do you positively get through that situation?
So another piece you slightly gave me as well, without noticing, you're interviewing in Israel. Culture matters, right? So
yeah.
Israel, not Japan.
No, I'm saying particularly Israel, because unfortunately Israel, like, when they say an entry level position, it usually means 2 years experience, not actually you get the job with 0 experience, which is very, like, I had to learn the hard way.
Okay, so listen. So again, I'm using the business unit thinking, and I'm going to drive this to improv. And again, for those of you who don't know what the business unit idea is, go look it up. There's a ton of content online. There's the previous webinar. I don't want to spend time on it. So thinking like a business unit, Ilan, you're the CEO of Ilan Incorporated. You're applying for a job, meaning you're going to meet a potential customer. Meaning your job is not, or let's say what you want is not just to get the job. Getting the job is not the end, it's the beginning. And if it's the wrong job, then you failed. And if it's the right job and you sucked at the interview, then you failed. So my approach would be, when you go to interviews, especially in Israel, go to them as if you were a freelancer and you have only a slot for one customer, and that could be them, like your full-time job, okay? What does that mean when you go to an interview? So of course, I mean, I'm not saying be super blunt and ask questions right away, but as you answer their questions and they come to see that they want A, B, and C, and all you have is A and B, you lack C, right?
Or you just have only A and not B and
C. Or
C.
you just have only A. So here's a way we can break the fourth wall or go meta and, drive the conversation forward. So you could say, look, I want to be very honest with you. Maybe I'm the right candidate, maybe I'm not, maybe it's a good fit, maybe not, I don't know. My job here is to discover it just as well as you do. I can tell you why I decided to apply for this position, although I saw on LinkedIn that I only have A and not B and C. So you want to come out and say that.
I've done that, but it didn't work.
Okay.
They appreciate the passion, but they wanted the skills.
Okay, which happens, right? So another thing you could do is it okay if I ask a question, Miss Interviewer or Mr. Interviewer? Yeah, sure. When you decided that you need A, B, and C, why did you decide that it's a must to have A, B, and C at that level of an experience? And they will tell you, listen, we need someone who knows how to deliver on ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. And you would say, okay. And just to understand, let's say you have a candidate that knows A and can learn really fast B and C, but also has values like D and E and F. Or you have someone who has only A, B, and C and doesn't really have D and E and F. would you value the potential of getting someone to learn B and C and the rest as well, or you need those skills right now?
It would depend on the company and the situation, because sometimes they need it right now. I feel like most of the time they need right now, and they don't want to, and plus they don't know you. They don't want to invest in you if they don't know you.
Right.
So
So
that's
I
the
want
situation
to.
I'm in usually.
All right. So what I want to do, oh, crap. I want to jump and show something on my screen. Again, it doesn't have to be completely related to improv, but I think I know where you're coming from. So
Yeah.
just
No, but it's just right now, like I'm a computer programmer, and
I assume.
I'm like I'm learning the skills I need to learn, but like sometimes like I just don't have all the skills because every company is very specific.
Ilan, where are you from?
Yeah. Hong Kong originally.
Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. And you're currently on a program, or you're done with the program? And
I did a Masa program. I did a Masa program before.
Okay.
I did it like almost like I did
That's
like a
okay.
5
You're
month
not currently
program.
on a Masa program.
Yeah, and then
Okay. Got it.
but
The
it
last
didn't
piece of
work out. It
information
didn't
I
work
need to
out.
know. The last piece of information I need to know. Are you already in Israel? It's just technical. Are you already?
Yeah, I'm
It's
currently in Israel.
just so you know, for the rest of it, it doesn't matter. I think like waiting for the citizenship and not getting after your job is a huge mistake. You can do it well before, but never mind that. So here's something for you, which could be relevant for others.
Okay.
And then I'll go back to improv. Olim's value in mitigating culture. Look, you could reach out to companies, or they reach out to you, and it could be that they're looking for A, B, and C, and that's really what they need right now. And that's it. Like, what can you do, right? It's a formula.
Yep.
You either fit in or not. But here's something. There could be a company that is looking for a mobile developer. And who knew they're trying to tap into the APAC market, Asia Pacific market, through a proxy in Hong Kong. Now, what do you know? They're not looking for a marketing lead. They're looking for a mobile developer. But the fact that you're from Hong Kong is not just, the culture, and you may know Chinese alongside your English. You may know a guy or two, or, your parents are friends with some, who knows? And that's something that they're not looking for. But if through improv, you say, listen, it may be a stupid idea, but, if that adds value, I'll be happy to sit with the marketing team and just, if I could help in a way with your attempt in Hong Kong. And that's something that they're not looking for in terms of, the job interview, but they would value. So you could be a mobile developer and help the marketing team, which works in front of Hong Kong. I would even say, when you look up companies to interview for, look for Israeli companies who are looking for developers and are working with Hong Kong. Because then you have an competitive advantage over Danny Cohen, who could be a better developer than you, but he doesn't know scrap about Hong Kong. So that's a post online. Go read it out. If you want my advice about it later on, reach out to me in person, okay? Because I want to go back to improv.
Okay, what's your is there a way for me to connect to you on LinkedIn or Facebook? Or?
Yes, it's very easy. You hit connect with Asaf Luxembourg.
Yeah.
Please don't send a bullshit blank request. This is something we discussed in previous. I'm not going to talk about networking here, although I don't mind talking about anything. But guys, please don't send bullshit blank connection request. Add a personal note. You know what it feels like if you go to a business conference, those things we used to have before Corona, and someone reach out to you and give you a business card like this, and not say a goddamn thing. And you're looking, at your friend, what that person that gave you, like, who the hell is he? Why is he giving me a card and not speaking? That's you sending black connection request on LinkedIn. Okay. Add notes.
What's your name on LinkedIn again?
Asaf Luxembourg. Just Google my name.
Asaf
Yeah, so ask me in person, because I want to go back to improv, unless you want to practice improv. You said you had to go, so I want to.
Unfortunately, I have to head out now, but I guess I'll talk to you later about it.
Listen, take your cultural assets and turn them into a competitive advantage. Not necessarily to every company, but for the top 10 companies that you may want to reach to anyhow, because they work with Hong Kong, and they would want to have someone less experienced, but who knows Hong Kong, even though he's a developer, but could help the marketing team. I hope that gives you an idea.
Well, I've done it before, but I'll talk to you later about it.
Okay, great. So give me more details later.
Yep. Bye.
Jessica, back to you, right? I owe you one.
Okay.
Okay, so back to you. Give me the context again.
No, actually, in the job, it's not. It was more interesting for me, like in, I don't know, maybe social context or any kind of situation in life, like to be able to respond like quickly and like be, I don't know. For example, with I will give a very stupid example, but for example, someone makes a joke and you want to respond like also, but I just laugh. Like
Yeah,
I don't have
because
like
you
a
don't know
quick,
what to say.
yeah, I don't have a quick comeback, you know. So
Right.
so
And by the
how
way,
do I develop the agility in my mind to?
yeah. So how do you develop? First of all, some people are born with it. Some people are not. I was not born with it. I was not very, outgoing and external and creative and know what to say right away. I practiced, which is the optimistic side. You can practice it. You can't practice every scenario. Like if someone says
Right.
joke A, I will respond with joke B, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what improv does, and I really want to get to more exercise. I love your questions, but I would love to do some exercise too. Improv allows you to think faster because you're not trying to think of specific situations. You're trying to think of context. The neurons in your mind, they work more freely because you're not thinking about like a car that drives in a lane. You're looking at a landscape. And then you understand you don't always have to respond to something funny with something funny, for example. So that's one thing.
So it's practice how like.
But let's talk about more career stuff. So, give me
Okay.
some team meeting or in the internship or job interviews, which I guess, is something you all think about. Anybody here is a freelancer, by the way, so it's not job interviews, it's potential customers. Okay, so job interviews. Who here faced a situation where you didn't know what to say in a job interview? Would you mind sharing? Julia, maybe, or Anna? You don't need to give me all the details, just, the context. Julia,
I
Anna?
don't remember the situation right now.
Julia.
I'm sure it happened, but like you blank or something, but I don't remember a situation right now where that happened.
Okay.
I'm sure it happened, but I remember when.
How many people here are about to go into job interviews or you're doing job interviews right now? Okay. What are your concerns? Like, what are you afraid that would happen in a job interview that you would like to know how to improv and you don't know how?
I'm afraid that I will be asked some question and I wouldn't come up with an answer. And like, this weird situation when we're sitting in front of each other or in the Zoom and like waiting.
Yeah, like you can tell them, okay, I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what have you tried so far? I don't want to jump to the answer yet. What have you tried so far?
So far, I'm preparing really well. I'm writing like my speech and I went through a lot of interviews like in the previous time. So I'm writing down all the questions and I'm kind of trying to, predict.
Okay. So you're basically working on your pitch when they tell you, okay, tell us about yourself. You need like 2 minutes and they need to be like the good 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, this definitely like about
Right.
myself is prepared.
And it's a great thing to do because these are the 2 minutes that you actually totally control. And the way you storytell yourself is very effective. It would also give you confidence to later on say, for example, if they throw a question at you and you say, you know what, honestly, I don't really know. It's an interesting question. I need to think about it. It builds trust. So you can't use it all the time, but using it once in an interview, they say, okay, here's someone who's not just playing us. They're genuine. So what I want to tell you, and again, to save time, if you go to the previous, you know what, let's do this. Just so we could jump forward to other people. By the way, is Michael still here?
No.
9 p.m. Okay, he left. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so again, just to give you something for later on, if you go to LinkedIn, or it was also in Times of Israel, and you literally, if you just go to my profile, you know what, let's do this. If you go to my profile, you will see this, blah, 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 boom, don't miss your Corona crisis opportunity. This is the post I wrote, which was the precursor to the previous webinar. So you hit here, you go here, even if you don't want to read the full post, forget about that. Here you have like the full webinar. There are some others as well, but here you have like short clips. Like I literally took like 2-3 minutes, cut them, question, answer, and posted them here. So for you, where are you, Anna? Storytelling advice for entrepreneurs, for example, there's more than one version of it here. I would advise you to look at that because you could use that for you. Meaning, how do you tell your story in 2 minutes in a way that leads to why you chose to apply for that job? So it's not just, you know, generally get to know me and my hobbies. It's also my story, what I've done so far, and what led me to really want to apply for this job. And then it's pretty likely that the questions they will ask, they may have some technical questions they're going to ask anyhow, but the other ones will be related for the way you told the story. So it will help you improv in a better way.
A few times I'm just faces the situation when this question, tell me about yourself, it's in the end. And then in the beginning, they ask those very specific questions. For example, I just come up like how you deal with in a stress situation at work, how you deal when you argue with someone.
Okay. And these are the questions you are concerned about getting stuck? Okay.
Yeah, mostly.
So a few things you could do. First of all, again, I'm not saying don't practice. So practice, like Google, you know, most common questions on job interview. Get a list, think of what to say about them. Obviously, you need to think about one example where you led something. Obviously, you need to think about one example where you failed in something. Doesn't have to be something big. Obviously, it has to be with something, you know, I sometimes ask when I interview, tell me about an incident where your boss said X and you really believe that Y, and you try to convince your boss that your boss is stupid and wrong and you're right. And, you know, how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. That's the question.
Right.
I don't know how to answer that.
So listen, you could say, very honestly, listen, you know, I don't remember anything that happened exactly like that. But you know what? It reminds me of a story that I had in the internship last year. See, so that's a way to use yes and. We spoke about yes and as a tool. So you're not saying, you know, never happened to me, and then you block, right? You use the question to drive to the next thing. It reminds you of a story that is kind of similar about X, Y, and Z. Okay? I could go on and give examples, but that's one way of doing it. So do think of yourself. I mean, obviously, most likely the interviewer went to Google, you know, right? Like a year ago when she was redesigning the interview process for her company. How can we do a better interview process? Google, most common, I don't know, top interview questions to ask candidates. It's the same YouTube video you could watch. So do it. I would say go meta and break the fourth wall. And you say, you know what? It's interesting you asked that question because I actually looked at a YouTube video, you know, top, you know, questions for interviews, and it was one of them. And I thought, should I say the story about X or the story about Y? And you know what? I think I'm going to tell you something completely different because of what you told me about your company. There was one time where I worked at blah, blah, and you go there. So I just revealed information about how I went and did market research, which questions are the best. And I came across that video and she may smile because who knows, it's the same video she saw. And although you told yourself, you know, I could talk about this experience or that experience, you know what, Michelle, since you told me that your company is in blah, 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 you know what, 5 years ago, there was an incident and you build trust because you show her you talk about something you did not plan to talk about. Plus, that whole story took you 20 seconds. 20 seconds is a lot of time to think. Okay, so that's a way to use improv. Next.
So something that I'm worried about whenever I have to improv in an interview is that the interviewer will tell that that's happening and think to themselves, okay, so this guy is lying to me. What are ways to make sure that doesn't happen?
Okay, so honesty and trust are way more important than showing that you fit professionally, in my mind, right? There are some companies where you want to be the asshole liar that just knows the jobs the best. I hope you're not applying for those places, right? But give me a little bit more context. So what do you mean when you say like the interviewer will think that I'm lying?
Exactly that. I don't
Why
have
would
more
she think that
context.
you're lying?
I mean, I'm not, but I'd imagine there's certain things that you might say while improving or anything like that that would trigger that in the interviewer.
I
Okay.
have a scenario if that helps. Basically, I'm changing fields right now, and I'm going for entry-level jobs. So whenever
Going for
interviewer
what,
asks
sorry?
entry-level jobs.
Okay.
So basically, when an interviewer asks me like, "Why do you want to work here?" and like, "With your background, that doesn't make sense to me," blah blah blah, and like I try to justify it, but like sometimes it's not my dream job, and they can maybe sense that I'm lying about it or something.
Can I ask you a question, Marcella? Or
Yes.
San or anybody else? Deep inside, when you applied for that job, while you are, you know, it's more related to you, I guess. When you were, Marcella, when you were pivoting, you're pivoting your career and you say, you know what, I should apply for X, and you get the job interview. If deep inside you don't really want that opportunity, a good interviewer will know to smell it out.
But
So-
sometimes you don't have the luck to choose. You have to apply to
Right.
multiple questions.
So what I would do, again, use improv tools to build trust. So what I would do, again, is using the same tricks. I would do something like, and again, I don't know the context, you know, God is in the details, but generally speaking, and take this with a grain of salt, I would do this. You know, Michelle, when I looked at the job description, since, you know, my experience is in X and I want to pivot to Y, I know you're kind of looking for Z. And Z is more close to Y than X, but it's not 100% what I was looking for that I told you that I want. And I know that. The reason I decided to apply for this opportunity anyhow is because I'm thinking that maybe someone like me could also do X, Y, and Z. I broke the fourth wall. I went meta, right? And I bought time to think. So I improvised. And again, based on your details, I can share your story. You know what? I'll share a real story from my background. Unless someone wants to ask something completely different, I'll share an example. So 400,000 years ago, when I was younger, it wasn't a career pivot, but I basically was part of a venture or a project. And I decided I don't want to stay here. I want to jump ship before this thing goes down, because I don't believe in the way it's managed and morale and values, and never mind. Not my style. I want out. And this was before I started my own business. But I was already doing it on the side for free, internship, speaking engagements, the whole thing, a little bit of consulting. And I went to a job interview for a company, and never mind what the name of the company was. And when I applied, I told them, you know, at a certain point in the interview, they told me, okay, so why did you decide to apply? And I basically told them, listen, I guess, like, if I were you, I guess I'm a little bit overqualified. And if I were you, maybe I would not even invite me, because, you know, why would we want to take someone overqualified? The minute they find something better, they will leave. Why invest in such a candidate? I guess that's something, Jessica, you relate to, right? You asked about pivoting careers? No, what? Anna, sorry. Right? Who asked about that? Like being the overqualified. So it's still you, Marcella. Okay, so I came out and said that. That's not improv, that's just a sales tactic. So I assumed what their concern was, and I was the forthcoming to put it on the table in a nice way and put it, look, I'm guessing this is a concern you would have. I would have it if I were you. So I want to tell you what was I thinking when I applied for this job interview. I can tell you what my answer was. It will not necessarily be your answer, But that answer got them to be convinced to take me. And the interview was more of like a business meeting, meaning me and them coming to terms about how it's going to work, than accept me or not accept me. Was that clear? So the general idea here is this: if you have certain concerns when you apply for a job and you get the job interview, my advice is you be the one to put the concern on the table. Even if the interview goes well, I would even say that, Ronit, I actually wanted to say something. We didn't talk about it, but if I need to think like you, I would have a concern about me. Blah, 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 blah. And I want to put it on the table. And maybe it's not a concern, but if it is, I want to tell you what would be my answer if you asked me about it. And shut up and let her respond or him respond. Maybe they'll say, don't worry about it. Or maybe say, you know what, I'm interested. What would you say if I were to ask you this? But going that route is some sort of an improv that builds trust. Don't wait for them to ask you, what are your disadvantages, right? If you are the one who puts it on the table, not always it's possible. Maybe they ask all the questions and they give you 5 minutes in the end. It may happen, Jonathan, but many interviews would be very different. And it also depends on how you apply. When you apply directly and you come through the door, you may get the standard interview. And if you came through the door and you got the interview, it means that they really believed in you as a candidate, because they get 10,000 CVs and you're one of the 10 that they chose. So 10 out of 10,000. That's a 1 in 1,000. So good for you. When you come out the window, and there are ways to get job interviews by coming through the window, not come out the window, come through the window, then the interview is being conducted differently. Go to that blog post, look for that part about don't look for a job, biz dev, don't just apply for jobs. Reach out to companies you want to work for. Don't talk to HR. Go to the head of product. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. Ask him a question that is not, I want to work for you, not that, but ask him a question that, interesting. Why do you ask? And that's how you can get that job interview. And that job interview would be different than the template one in many cases. So I threw a lot of additional advices here, but the main one would be you put their concerns or what you believe their concerns are on the table, which kind of leads me to the one point that I didn't really talk about yet, which is how to own the internship in terms of, at least at certain parts, you be the interviewer. But I'm putting that aside for a little bit. Anybody has other questions? Who here has an upcoming job interview? Or it could be a team meeting that, I don't know, your friend, you have to present something to your boss or something like that, and you would like to practice maybe. Okay, if there is something, please burst in. I don't remember if we scheduled 1 hour or 90 minutes. Let me check my calendar for a second.
It's until 7:30, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, great. So we have more time. So I want to talk a little bit about questions that you may want to ask when you interview. Because in my mind, there is no such thing as going for a job interview. You're going to a sales meeting and you want to make sure if they are the right customer for you. So one of the things I like advising others to ask, or when I used to ask myself in the last times that I interviewed, because I run my own business, so I don't interview a job interview with myself, but I do interview others. So one question that I like to receive from interviewees is, it goes like this. So what is important for you in this position? And then they'll say something blurry and, very generic and, mundane. And then you say, okay, what will count as a success? Like, let's say you hire not me, someone else, the best candidate. What counts as success? A year from now, what is that developer doing that you don't have yet? If that's an intern, well, nobody here is applying for an internship. But for the millions who may watch this online or whatever, like, let's say you apply for an internship interview, which is limited in time, it's 3 months. For many of you in the future, you will apply for a project that is 3 months, because you'll start your own business and you're applying for a project, which is 3 months. Or as an employee of your customer, as an employee of your company, you would go and talk to customers who may hire you and your company for 3 months. So it's limited in time. And you say, okay, so for this project, what is the main goal? What counts as success? What do we have 3 months from now that we don't have yet? Don't talk about responsibilities and authorities and what do you do at work. Talk about the results of your work. Because thinking like a business unit, no, I can't take that call right now. Thinking like a business unit, that's what your customer cares about. Nobody's hiring you because they need another employee. People consider hiring you because they have something to do that is so important for them and they have so little time to think about and care about that they'd rather pay someone to do it for them. Does that make sense? So any job description for any opening is born out of a certain customer pain. The company you apply for has a certain pain. There's a certain amount of work that is not getting done, so we need to bring another person, which we will need to pay for and teach and incorporate into the team and give them the laptop. And it's a pain. Hiring is pain, but we can't avoid it. Having someone to do it is that important. You want to tap into that pain. So we moved from improv to questions you want to ask, even if it's in the last 5 minutes, but you want to show that you're proactive, you think businessy, and you understand, no, my dear son, I can't take your call right now. And you can't, and you really understand them. You're doing the John Malkovich, and you're not trying to get the job so you would get their money as a monthly salary, so you will be good. It's not about you, it's about them and what you do for them. This is a business, marketing, sales thinking. Most candidates don't really take that approach. They think, what do I need to answer so that they would pick me so that I will get the job, hence I will have a salary and it will make me happy and I will have money because it's me, 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 me. And the minute you show them that you think about them, it puts you in a different position, even if you don't have all the skills, Jonathan. So what is your goal in this hiring? What will count as success for the right candidate to join on board? What would you want to happen in the next 3 months, 6 months, by the end of the year? Without getting into names, did you have someone that did that position? Were you happy with what he or she did? Because maybe they fired that person and threw them off, or maybe they had the best person in the world, but she left for maternity leave. You want to understand what is their history with that specific need. So these are questions that I really advise on asking. Goal, what are your goals? What counts as success? What happened before, without getting into too much details. Then you could tweak in what you don't have. So listen, obviously I don't have B and C, but I mean, I can tell you that I'm a fast learner, and I can tell you all the things that probably other candidates tell you as well. I can also tell you that since I came from Hong Kong, and I know you guys are working in Asia, if there's something I could help with my Chinese, I would be happy to. You didn't say that you wanted, but I'm happy to offer it. Is that important? I mean, is that relevant? And shut up. And then you get them to think, maybe we should skip a little bit outside that template of what we were looking to hire and see who's in front of us. Does that make sense, Jonathan?
Yes. I'm confused why you're referring to me specifically, though I did not
I don't remember if you're the guy from...
I'm not from Hong Kong, different men.
I know.
I'm American.
That's okay.
I believe Elon is gone.
Okay. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm blurring you all up. I mean, you're all one person to me. You're from Hong Kong, and you're American, and you're a developer, and you're...
Oh, I'm definitely not a developer.
I'm joking.
I work in education. We're as far from high tech
too.
so far as I can get in this country.
You would be surprised. So let's do that. Okay, great. So even if it's in the last few minutes, insist on asking a few questions yourself, just to show how do you think and how you try to tap into their needs. Sometimes you would have time for more questions. I highly advise you ask more questions, not too much like someone said over here. So again, improvise. If you have like a list of questions and these are good questions to ask as a candidate, because I went to YouTube and search what are the best questions to ask as a candidate in job interviews. You will not get to ask all 10, but you will get to ask 5 out of 10. So that's the one point I wanted to mention. Again, I'm improvising here, so it's not really related to improv, but it's super important for job interviews. Questions?
It's not really a question, but I think it's also important, like, to develop the self knowledge, to know, like, also which organization is good for you, regardless of what they think. That you also have to ask about how is the culture of the company, how is the structure. So you have to be able to know if it is a good place also for you, not just like if they choose you.
You have no idea how much you are right, Jessica. That's exactly what I talk about when I'm talking about, where is it? Don't look for a job biz dev, or how to manage your boss like a customer, or you know, a lot of the stuff that is in here. Again, I couldn't repeat this enough, but I'm not going to get into the whole spiel. The more you think of yourselves as if you are the CEO of you and you're interested in working with that company, even though you know you don't have everything that they said they need, and even though you could be overqualified, but there's an emotional reason why you want to work there. If you're able to communicate that emotional reason, it could turn the interview into one where you have much more control, you'll feel much more comfortable, and you'll feel much more natural improvising. It will not even be improvising, it will just be a conversation. I came to see that with developers, with marketing people, with almost anything. And again, the more you break the fourth wall and go meta, it builds this idea that you're not sitting in front of them, you're sitting with them. This is not a job interview, it's just a conversation. And so it's less technical. The more you go there, the better. Who else?
I have a question.
Hi, Galit.
Hi. I was wondering, you had mentioned to try to think from the perspective of the company you're interviewing with. So I was trying to do that in the context of education. Like, let's say in the Israeli system, like you're going for a job, and you had mentioned to try to think like, what need are they trying to fill?
I hope it's okay to ask, are you MITF?
Yeah.
Jonathan, are you MITF? Okay.
So I'm assuming like multiple of us are like in the field of education, because this was advertised to MITF. So I was just wondering if you might be able to improv like like specifically that, like you're at an interview to be a teacher, and how would I think through like the logic of how the school needs to fulfill the need, you know, or is it the district, or is it the country? Or...
So, Jonathan, you didn't give me the full context, but since you told me you're MITF, I know you're speaking about education from the context of teaching, right? Because
yes,
for the program. So maybe that's the job interviews you're also looking for. Jonathan, education could be ed tech. So, you know, give me a little bit more context later on. Because, Ronnie, you're the developer? No. Okay, so I'm confusing again. So education could be a lot of things that are not necessarily teaching up front. But
Right.
back to you, and then I'll be happy to go back to you, Jonathan. Schools are very bureaucratic organizations. I mean, at the end of the day, it's government. I mean, there's probably a certain template that the interviewer must fill in, even if they hate that template. There's a certain process that you have to go through, even if people hate that process. I mean, it's like corporates, right? That's the way they do stuff. Not going to change it. But many times you're going to interview in smaller companies where there is no real process. And then you want to be as much forward and reaching and, you know, taking the business unit approach. But I would say that even in schools, it's the same. So I think the business unit thinking applies to all. When you reach out to a school, what is most important for the person who is hiring you, which is probably the principal and one of the teachers sitting with you? What is the most important trait for a kind of job where they kind of have to put you in front of students without being there, and they're going to have to do it pretty much right away? What do they need?
I mean, if I would imagine if I was a principal in that situation, I would want to hear that somebody has experience.
Mm-hmm. Confidence, right? Experience. But what is the most important thing? Confidence and experience are important, well, to say the least. But what is also very important for the kind of job where you're not next to your boss all day, you're in the field, it means that
I mean, just a general responsible person, is that what you're getting at?
Right, because they need to do what with you?
With me, the principal?
No, I mean, if you're applying for a job and the principal and one of the veteran teachers are hiring,
they have to trust me. They have to trust me.
Trust.
Yeah.
So again, I'm using sales techniques for job interviews because I believe that there is no such thing as a job interview. You're selling the school, Galit Incorporated, and trust is maybe the best carrier for sales, much more than experience, much more than confidence. You would not, I assume, you may not take the most experienced lawyer, accountant, doctor, psychologist. You would take the one you trust the most. Once you understand that with them, if you get them to see that you are someone they can trust, it matters less if you have all 5 things that they're looking for or just 4.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
That's why you want to go for trust. And even in schools, you know what? Thinking from a school perspective, they need to fill in the forms. There's due process. They must show X, Y, and Z. You know, the system is on them all day long, you know, report. I mean, you know how it is. You saw the backstage of how a school is like. I mean, most of the time they're not busy teaching kids. They're busy fighting the systems to get at least a little bit of independence to do something good because the system is on them all day long. I mean, sometimes that's how it looks like from behind the scenes. So once you tap into that and you show them that you don't know everything and you may do a little bit of mistakes, but you're humble and you can learn and you know how to learn fast because you're confident, but you're trustworthy. Then what happens is you realize that what you really sell them is not what they're looking for in the job description. What you really sell to them is peace of mind. And the more you try to go there, you will feel like the less they really care about. Like they may say at a certain point, you know what, listen, you know, you don't have that characteristic and you don't have the right amount of experience. And we will need to factor this into account. So you know what, let's start on a part-time basis. Let's do a 1-month trial and see how it works, just because they were able to feel a certain amount of trust with you.
Yeah, got it. That really, really helps.
I'm telling you, maybe it's a universal, again, I know we're diverting from improv, but it's more important. The more you will try to deploy sales, not even tricks, like a sales mentality, not sales in a sleazy way, you know, buy this for $9.99. No, sales in a way of, really making the customer want to work with you, the customer, not the potential employer, then the terms could be different. And you know what? We actually started interviewing you for this role, but listen, we're going to take someone else, but you could really help in that place. Now, if you're interviewing for a company you really want to work for, it matters less if you're going to do this role or that role.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I hope that helped.
It really helped. Thank you so much.
Great, I appreciate it. Jonathan, back to you. You want to give me a little bit more context just because I feel like I owe you a more specific answer. Then I want to move
Okay. Yes. My background is in educational psychology, working with new college students. However,
Okay.
I am not a licensed therapist and I am not a certified teacher. My past experience is working, for example, in student housing and LGBT centers, usually with programming, workshops.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I heard you a little bit, you were kind of broken on my side, but you're kind of some sort of a counselor? That's what
No, I am not a licensed therapist and I am not a certified teacher. I work outside the classroom, usually in the past that has been in student housing and in LGBT centers, mostly with programming and educational efforts.
As a counselor, not a professional therapist.
Sure.
Gotcha. Let me share you something from my world, okay? So when I took the business unit thinking and the whole pitch of how to hack the new world of work, and I tailored it to Masa program, and that started something like 3 years ago. And I don't want to take you through that story and how I believe this is big, big, big and relevant to the future. When I started that, I came to programs that I work with who bring me to work with their Masa candidates. Okay, so what's happening? I'm not trying to sell you, like come to me, to my coaching class. I'm not a coach, but there are programs who bring me to work with their candidates as a side counselor. I'm not the official internship boss, and I'm not the program manager. I am the third party. Make sense? The way I did that is by saying, listen, I don't claim to be a coach. I don't want to be a coach. I don't claim to be a professional, the professional guide or the teacher for that matter. I don't want to be. I don't have the license. If you're looking for that, I am not your guy. My approach is to come and be like the older brother. So that's what I told some of the programs that I work with. I want to take an older brother approach. Now, you go to your parents to certain things because officially they're in charge of you when you're a kid. But you would go to your older sibling when you need some sort of a, third party tip maybe. That's what I'm trying to do. Now, sometimes they need that certificate. It means that you didn't qualify the place you're interviewing for enough, right? If this was a business and we were to go and try to sell to a company together, right? Like, here's a company we want to sell our services to. Reach out to them, we get them interested, we get to the meeting, and we realize that we do things that are totally irrelevant for them because they need something very specific that it's not us. We could have saved that time if we would have checked before, right? So to wrap up my answer, the answer is I advise on the older brother approach. It worked for me. It will not work for the wrong potential customers. It will work with the right potential customers. So you want to burn out the wrong ones in advance and get to the right ones faster. But this goes back to don't look for a job, biz dev, which is one of those links that I showed before in the post. So there's a lot of it online, which basically means, guys, it's great that you apply for jobs, spray the hill, send 150 applications, you'll get 10 replies, 7 of them will be rejections, 3 will be a maybes, 1 of them will be a yes, 1 in 150. That's how it works today from what I came to learn from the field. I'm not a professional, I'm just a Bedouin helping Bedouins. That's what I learned from other Bedouins. 100 to 150 depends on the context. That's when you go and see who is hiring and who could I fit to them. Another thing you could do is say, okay, in a perfect world, everybody pays the same. In a perfect world, the reputation is the same. CEO of Google and cleaning the street is both admirable in that perfect world. And in a perfect world, the risk management is the same. Small startup, big enterprise, same risk. And in a perfect world, everybody wants me now. So in that perfect world, when I take all that arguments and turn them into constants in that mathematical equation, the one variable that remains is, where do I want to work in such an imagined reality? Ask yourself that question, and then open Excel, column A, name of company, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, top 10. Column B, right, it's the same A or B, I don't know. Column A, column B, right? So it's opposite for B, good for you. Column A, column B. Column B is my why. Simon Sinek, start with why. Some of you know this, some of you don't. Look it up. Let's use Simon Sinek, start with why. My why for company number one. Why do I really want to work there if all things being equal in the perfect world? Company number two, company number three. What is my why? Do I like the product? Do I like the company? Do I admire the founder? Do I love the way they communicate and market? And I'm a marketer, so I want to be part of that team. What is the emotional reason that you want to be part of their tribe? Emotional, human, because all the technical is, constant. Column C is their why. So if they couldn't care less about what you want to be with them, why should they want someone like you? It could be related for a job description that they published right now because they're hiring. It could not. Why should they be interested in having someone like you on board? Company name, my why, their why, multiply by 10, you have the top 10. Now go to LinkedIn. Go to those companies, look at the company page, see who works there, see who do you know. And then you'll come across Michelle from HR. However, unless you want to work in HR, because HR is part of your why, if you want to work in the marketing department, reach out to the marketing director. Because they're not in the hiring business, they're in the, have the best people on board my team business. Reach out to the marketing director in a smart way. In the videos, I show examples about, how to do it. And once you establish a relationship, like you give them a tip, you found a typo in their website, you give them an idea for the next campaign, whatever it is, ask for 2 minutes to ask for an advice. And based on that advice, and I show that on the videos, get them intrigued into maybe, it's worth, discussing with you. Maybe there's something we can do together. And believe me, they know how to go to Michelle from HR and tell her, listen, remember Ruth? Remember we said we want to get rid of her again, and she's not delivering anymore and she's tired, but she's still good and we're kind of stuck. I think we have the next person. You never know. You never know. Don't think getting a job, think about sales. Don't look for a job, business. So it's all online. More questions. Who here wants to practice something that happened to you in a job interview and you got stuck? Of course, it's not you, it's a friend of yours. It never happened to you. It's just an imaginary situation. Let's try to play a game, okay? We have a few minutes left. Let's try to play a game. You be the interviewer and I'll try to be the interviewee. How would you say, you take more job interviews than me. I interview a little bit, but you take job interviews. How does a job interview start? What would you say are the first thing that the interviewer says?
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Who here disagrees? Or maybe
how are you? I would ask how are you?
Okay, how are you? Of course, like small talk. What would you say is the first thing professionally? Tell us about yourself or something professional?
I would say something more specific, like tell me what you did in the company X and why do you want to leave in the company X, why you were hired.
So we saw on your CV that you worked at blah, 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 and you left. So can you share with us what happened? Anybody ever had a challenge with that part so far? So these are general questions of them getting to know you. Great. So none of you had any challenges. Let's move on. I will say look at the storytelling video, like how to tell your story in 2 minutes. I think the video is for entrepreneurs, but convert it for you. There's a way to tell your story, which is not general, but lead them to why you chose to apply for that job. The emotional reason, your why. It could change the course of the interview. Okay, so we're past that. So I tell you a little bit about myself and why I decided that I'm willing to make even less than what I could, just because I want to get more experience in that field. And if a company can benefit from my extra experience when I was a lawyer and now I want to be an accountant, fine. But I really want that pivot. It's important for me for my career. So let's say we're done with that and I'm done telling you about myself and why did I decide to apply for this job interview. What would you as the interviewer ask me next?
I freaking forget answer. Like, tell me about your daily work, daily process.
No, let me open. I mean, you're totally right. Let me even open a job interview. Hold on. I have it in handy. I don't want to waste too much time. Screw it. Okay, I'll continue and I'll bring this up. A few questions that some of you may have encountered. How many of you got asked about what do you want regardless of this job? Like, what's your dream in life? Who got asked?
I've never been asked.
Okay. That's something that if you do get asked, I mean, you do want to be honest. Like when someone says to me, my dream was to work in your startup since ever, well, we didn't exist 3 years ago. How could this be your dream? So don't try to bullshit them. Hold on, I'm getting to what I'm looking for. So that's number one. Number two, you do want to communicate your career dream. In that other webinar, I talk a little bit about how your job is not necessarily your career. It's part of the business unit idea. Job is for the next year or two. Career is the path you're doing in your professional life. Career is made out of jobs, but a random sequence of job is not a career. So I decided to apply for this job because in a way it helps me promote my career goals. That's a language I would advise you to use. You kind of turn this into like a job interview session. That's fine by me. Let's see. I want to get to this thing right here. Plus 9, no. Right. Okay. Great. So a few questions. If you don't get asked about what are your dreams, what is your career goal, like what do you want to do in 20 years, you may want to proactively communicate that. So what else do you want us to know about you? Well, I do want to tell you that if you look at my CV, it kind of looks like I'm trying to pursue a career in X. And to be honest, it's kind of true. Like in the long run, I do want to be in the X business. But I understand that in order to be successful in the X business, I also need experience in the Y industry. And that's why I decided to apply for this job. Because for me, that experience is worth gold in the future. Now, I do understand that, I think that the fact that I have experience in X coming to a company that is in Y could bring value. I don't know if I'm right or not. I'm happy to learn from you, but that's part of what I was thinking of. Why could I be an interesting candidate? What I did right now is try to align the goals between the two sides. So to explain why did I decide to apply, to show them how they serve my purpose in the long run, which is why I will be incentivized to work hard, be willing to come towards them, blood, sweat, and tears, and will not run away in 3 months just because I received something better. It's not just the money. So it builds trust. It's breaking the fourth wall. It's sharing from the backstage of your mind. And it aligns the interest, alignment of interest. I also gave them a reason why they should hire someone like me, even if they didn't think about that. You know what? It's interesting that you're from Hong Kong. We didn't think about that, but if someone could help the team specifically with Asia, we will never hire someone to be an Asia marketer. but you could help a little bit to the other department. Not a bad idea. Let us think about it. You just sold them another need. Does that make sense? So communicate your long-term goals. Another one, tell me about an incident where things went wrong and how did you react? So these are questions that are sometimes, anybody got asked about that? Okay, so you do want to have an answer ready. And my way would be, listen, you know, there's something that happened to me a few years ago, which is usually what I'm sharing in interviews when I get asked that question. But since you told me about, you know, what you do right now, I kind of want to talk about another experience that I actually had in school, not at work. So you know what? I think I'm going to go with the school example, if that's okay with you. So you shared with them your deliberation in which example to use. Builds trust, bought you some time. They choose, you know what? No, tell us about work, not about school. Great, they chose. It's just an improv trick. Make sense? Great, but you do want to have at least one incident ready to use. Here's another one. We're running out of time. What did you want 3 years ago and what happened? Like, what did you want for your career? Which jobs were you looking for 3 years ago and what happened? We want to see if your ambition changes. So communicate that and say, you know what, actually, so pivot or not pivot, your deliberations, but you do know that for the short term, which is the next 2 or 3 years, you really want to be devoted into something that is X, Y, and Z. Show them potential commitment. What are the interviewers afraid of? That they're going to hire a good person and they're going to leave, right? Or they're going to hire the wrong person and it's going to be a hard time making them leave. So diffuse their worries. Here's another one. What is the most complex thing you ever faced? And what did you do? How did you face that challenge? It could be personal, professional, whatever. Tell me about a project you led. Here's the one I mentioned before. Has it ever happened to you that you thought X, your boss thought Y, and what did you do? They want to see if you were playing, you know, teddy bear no, or whatever that's called, like you're not going to do it if it's not your way, or you're just a yes man that will do whatever the boss says and will not think independently. So you want to show that you will try to persuade, but if the call is to do X, you're going to do X the best way you can, right? It's important for them. So these are questions that you do want to prepare for. My advice would be, even if you have that answer ready, try to improvise on it. Breaking the fourth wall, using yes and. We didn't discuss team meetings, when there's like a brainstorming or in the teacher's room in the school. Don't say, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea because, say, you know what, I think it's a great idea. Maybe it even could be greater if. So that kind of language. Go meta and breaking the fourth wall is maybe the most important tip. I repeated it a few times today. Try to agree, disagree, and say, I don't know. If it fits, let's say they give you a case study in the interview. And you say, we were thinking of doing X. What do you think? So you say, you know what, I think it could be good here. I don't know if it will be good here. And I don't think it will be a good example here. You know, so a combination of them. And try to ask the right questions and interview the interviewer. With your questions, you have the opportunity to sell trust and peace of mind, which I would argue is way more important than professional traits. I could teach you how to do X, Y, and Z, but I can't teach you how to be an honest and sincere and trustworthy person. That you need to sell to me, the interviewer. I'm the customer, you're the business unit. Objections, questions.
We agree with everything.
Okay, that was a pretty long spiel for the beginning because I wanted to wrap this thing all up. We didn't really do long improvs, and that's okay, but I hope at least the Q&A was relevant to you guys. I will say what I said in the last webinar because it's even truer today than it was back then. I do believe that the Corona crisis provides a lot of opportunities if you think in a more creative way and more like in a business unit way. I try to give general tips because a lot of the practical tips are online in that post. So I do advise you to go look it up. And I do invite you to reach out to me through the website, email, LinkedIn, Twitter, anywhere but Facebook and Instagram, really. Yeah, reach out. I would be happy to take it to a more individual level. Thank you for coming. I hope this was relevant. And go out there and get yours. There has never been a better time in terms of what's happening right now to reach out to people who would not reply to you. The window is closing, time window is closing. Don't miss that opportunity. Put that seed for a relationship, which could lead to that Zoom 5-minute call, which could lead to that unexpected 30-minute Zoom meeting call, which you didn't think is a job interview, but then you got the phone call. You never know. So don't look for a job, biz dev.
Thank you.
Thank you
for the energy.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.